All right, welcome to another Dark Wizard Gaming Battle Report.
Hello, everybody.
I'm joined with Karen, or Master Gunner, on the forums. So we have a special battle report today because it's our first one with 2.0.
Yevers.
So a couple things. We're going to change to 4,500 points. I know we've been doing 5,000, but with the new rules, and all of our tournaments here locally have went to 4,500, so that's what all our games are going to be going forward. Our game today is going to be Frontline Clash and Secure Target. I know we have a lot of new exciting scenarios, but it's already enough changes. We didn't want to make it more complicated today, so we're going to play a nice, simple game.
Especially for me.
Especially for you. So what are you playing today, Karen?
I'm going to be playing my lizard. So from the last one, I guess we did on Battle Report, mine's slightly different. I actually got more magic. Mike wanted...
You mean you have magic?
I have magic.
Because you didn't even have magic last time.
No, you're right. So I got my big frog in there. So Mike thought we should test out some magic, but we'll see. It may take the game twice as long because I'm not very good at making decisions. And oh, hey, Hooskies, we'll find out.
And you got a lot of magic to decide from.
Oh dear.
You still got some nice shooting though. You got three
yeah.
of your weapon beasts in there, and giant bows on both of your pterosaurs.
So I got 2 pterosaurs, and then I got my warriors and also my the ones with the clubs.
Temple Guard.
There you go.
Yeah, it's nice that you got clubs now. You're not getting that AP on those clubs, but it is nice that they're strength 6.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how those play out for you.
Absolutely.
And I know your magic is mostly meant to buff your combat, so I'm hoping that mine does the same. I'm playing VC today. I'm running a ghoul gas list, and
tiniest list I've ever seen for vampires from you.
I know, and there's almost no raising. The only thing I can raise is 20 zombies. That's the most I can get. So it's definitely a new style list for me, and this is all about getting into combat, and all my magic is meant to buff mine. So this will probably be pretty quick because we'll come together pretty fast on that.
Right.
All right. Is there anything that you were seriously concerned about with my army?
Oh, I'm always concerned. You know me.
Well, both of your big units are scary because if you can get a Saurian with either one of those, that's a lot of stuff I'm going to have to grow back. And I'm just not sure if I have enough in each of these magic phases now, the way that it's set up to grow back a ton. So
yeah.
I'll cross my fingers that my regen saves hold up.
I was going to say that with those, the gas?
Yeah, the gas.
Yeah, they have a lot of attacks and they have a lot of wounds each, so I don't know about them. But we'll see.
Well, it'll be very interesting. Good luck.
Good luck. Thanks.
Howdy ho, gang! So I'm going to just be telling you what my army does versus using all the new terms to make it quicker and easier. I'm going to start off with my large frog. He is my BSB and my general, and he is running the divination. We get a 2-up Aegis from ranged, and my unit is hard target. But one time during the game, I can have my opponent have a -3 on their offensive skills, and his Veil tokens are a 2-for-1 versus a 3-for-1 because he's special. And he knows the number 1 spell and all the other regular spells as well, and he gets 1 Veil token plus he gets a +1 to cast as well. My Skink Priest is a wizard adept who is running shamanism. He gets 2 Veil tokens and has the binding scroll. Starting on my right hand side, we have the Saurian warriors. There's 30 of them. There's full command for that unit. They have the serpent totem, which gives them a +1 agility and fighting an extra rank. They do have spears, so we get a total of 4 ranks. You will see that I have 2 pterosaurs. They both have giant bows. They're exactly the same except for the dark gray one on the left hand side has Engine of the Ancients. You will see that I have a spearback, and then right beside the spearback is my large unit of Temple Guard, 30 of them with full command carrying the Rending Banner. I also wanted to let everybody know my large frog will be in with my Temple Guard. Next up is going to be the little salamander. As everybody knows, he likes to shoot flames and he's a hoot and holler. I like him a lot. And next is going to be my little skink. So we have my skinks over here, and you're going to find is my other little wizard. That's where he's going to be hiding out. Last but not least is my other spearback. As everybody knows, Master Gun Karen likes to shoot everybody. I got to choose sides, so I chose this side because I didn't want the building in the middle of my deployment zone. I thought that'd be a good nuisance for Michael to deal with. So I also went ahead and just deployed everybody out That way, I just made sure all my people went where I thought they should go and to make it a little bit easier for me.
All right, so leading the vampire counts is going to be my vampire count, which is Bloodline of Strigoi. He's a wizard adept because that's the highest you can get with Strigoi. He has the Ghoul Lord, and he also has Tolia's Teeth and Blade of Red Thirst. He is running the Shamanism, and he'll have the Dead Arise spell as well. All right, so I didn't go with a BSB this time. I decided to go with another vampire count. He's also going to be Strigoi, and he has the Shamanism, his Wizard Adept, and he has the Bestial Bulk, the Eternal Ring, and the Binding Scroll. I couldn't go without another Necromancer, so we do have one Necromancer with Evocation. He's a Wizard Adept. He has a Necromancer's Tomb. All right, and then going from my right, I went ahead and put all of my vampire knights clear over to the right because I really didn't want to get those into her big blocks to the front. And she may chaff me up pretty good with some of these shooting things over there, but I feel like that's the best place to have them. And then I'm going to have 5 wraiths that are just kind of hiding behind that building since they can go through that building pretty easy. I've got 1 unit of giant bats, and then I've got another unit of the bat swarms beside them. In the middle is going to be my big unit of ghouls. I'm pretty excited to see how ghouls work with their new rule with their cannibalism. They do have just the champ, which is all I can do for them, but the champ does give us basically like having a musician in there, and that's where my vampire general lord is going to be, giving them the super poison on that and parry. Behind the ghouls, I've got a unit of 20 zombies with banner and musician. They have my cadaver wagon in there, and the cadaver wagon, it probably needed a nerfing, but it really got nerfed in this edition. That's the one thing I was a little sad about, how hard that got nerfed down. Now all it really does is just give a 6-up regen for units within 6 inches of it. But I have the model, I really like it, so I thought I'd go ahead and put it in there, and it will synergize decently with the Ghast, getting them to a 4-up regen. All right, and then moving over, I have a unit of 7 Ghast. They also have Champion, is all they can get for an upgrade. And that's where my vampire count with the Bestial Bulk is going to be. And then finally, round out the very edge is another unit of Great Bats. So since Karen was able to pick sides, she did a very good job of putting the building right in the middle of my deployment zone. I went ahead and just stacked everything really hard to one side of the building, all except for my vampire knights. And I just wanted to go ahead and match up straight against her. I'm a combat army, she's a combat army. I didn't figure I should try to start on one side and take us forever to get together. This will be a nice quick game as we run together. The big thing is we're both going to be trying to keep these objectives held, so we'll both come together pretty close to the middle of the board there. The big thing that I'm most concerned about is making sure that with all of her magic, she doesn't get some of these units really buffed up the first turn that I go into them, or the turn right afterwards, because her magic could really hurt me. She definitely has more magic than me. But this will be a really fun game. I'm interested to see how the new magic actually stacks up, and that's why I wanted to run 2 magic lists kind of against each other and just see how that works out between the two.
For round 1, on my Pterosaur I have the Engine of the Ancients, and I will be using Divination as the path, and I will be working with is where it's -1 to cast. None of the other options work for me against Mike's army, unless his horses happen to get 9 inches away, but I highly doubt it. So pretty much the whole game, we're going to use that one. As far as my movement goes, I just scooted everybody up a little bit and just kind of positioned them ever so slightly angled because I'm not sure which way Mike's going to go yet. Everybody for my shooters and for my large frog, everybody was too far. So I just got up as close as I can, but yet make sure I was not in charge range for Mike so he could get me. Before I go into my magic phase, I just want to tell everybody what spells I did get. For my divination, I had the number 1, which is Know Thy Enemy. Number 3, Scrying. Number 4, The Stars Align. Number 5, Unerring Strike. Now, as a reminder, is my frog gets to know number 1 and 6 at the same time. I also have is the Spark of Life, which is my hereditary spell. And then my little fella, he has the shamanism spells, and the ones he was able to use this game is the number 1 spell, Awaken Thy Beast, and number 3, Savage Fury. far as my magic phase goes, I was able to get off the stars align, and I put that on one of my pterosaurs because it's the only thing I can shoot. Everything happens to be out of range, so that's the only one I got off. Now, just to let everybody know too, we will be using the cards for pictures, but just as a reminder, all the stats and information is not correct, but at least everybody can see what spells went off. I forgot to let everybody know my flux card that I drew was the number 1, so there was 4 magic dice for each player and 3 veil tokens for me. But I also get 3 additional veil tokens because of all my people, and I traded them out 2 for 1, so I actually got 3 additional dice. My shooting was very uneventful. Even with my stars aligned and I could reroll, I still missed with everything.
So there wasn't too much action here for my movement phase. Karen didn't get close enough for any charges. And I should say there is a charge phase now, so it's charge then movement, and there wasn't anything charging-wise. Movement, I just pushed everything up. I wanted to make it to where if she did try to charge with all of her stuff, it would be long, so I don't think everything would get in. And I went ahead and brought the knights around the side here, so it's doing some threatening. I'm sure she's going to bring some of her weapon beast over and just chaff me up and do a little shooting on those knights. The one thing that's a little odd is I brought my wraiths over behind the building. They're going to be outside of the general's march bubble, so I'm not real happy about that. But the only spell for the next turn or two that really concerns me is going to be all of her magic missiles, which would just kill my wraiths, and they're going to be right in front of that salon. So I wanted to have it to where she couldn't see them, and so that may be a little wasted for the next couple turns, but I think it'll work out better in the long run, not to have them shot off and have to waste my magic dice to save them. Just to go over what I have for magic, since I didn't do that during my army overview, my general is running shamanism, and he has Awaken Beast, and he also has the Dead Arise spell, as well as the Evoke, which is our hereditary spell. My other vampire lord has shamanism, and he's running Savage Fury. He also has the Raise spell, the Evoke spell, which is our hereditary spell. And then my necromancer has Whispers of the Veil and Ancestral Aid. And what he did was he took the Necromancer's Tomb, which gives me the bound version of the evocation spell, and that can be cast on, even though it's a bound spell, it gets the second version, so it gets on the 6-inch bubble. So he was able to get 2 of the evocation spells. And with this, just so you guys, I'm sure you've seen it on the spoilers, but bound spells work differently. There's 2 casting values. You can cast it with 2 dice or 3 dice. It automatically goes off. On most of mine, it's going to be a 4 if you use 2 dice, or an 8 if you use 3 dice. So for my magic phase, I ended up with the Flux card 4, which is 5 magic dice each. Then there's 7 Veil tokens. I generate 4 Veil tokens myself, and so I went ahead and converted 3 of those into power dice and saved 2 Veil tokens over for next turn. I got pretty lucky on the magic. I ended up getting off my bound spell to raise, and I raised up 15 zombies, and then Karen got rid of the one that creates a new unit, which I knew she would. It's kind of sad that one's a bounce spell because I'd like to roll a lot of dice to get that new unit there to block her up. And then I went ahead and put the toughness version of Awaken the Beast on my Ghast, and I got lucky I did get that to go through. I don't think she's going to charge me, but just in case they were the closest thing that would get charged, I thought I didn't really have anything else to do because nothing else raises, so it was a good spot to put that on there. And she might decide to shoot them, and that would also help against the shooting.
All right, my charges, I got 3 of them off. I went into his Ghast, and the warriors and my 2 pterosaurs all made it. So I kind of got lucky with my pterosaurs. They needed 8 inches, so I got both of them. Yahoo! And then I went ahead and brought my guys with the clubs closer. That way they could use their leadership bubble for my pterosaurs. I'm not really sure how that's going to work out against his gas, but I want to make sure at least I can reroll. So I scooted them over a little bit and reformed. I did bring up my 1 spear back for the ghouls because I didn't want them to side flank into my pterosaur. So I figured I would sacrifice him and redirect him out of the way. And I did the same thing with my other spear back. I didn't want those big horses coming in and trying to get a side flank on my guys with the clubs, or even with my little skinks, because that's where my little wizards are at. So kind of sacrificing them, and anywho skis, we'll see what happens. The magic phase went fairly good. Mike had used his scroll, so scroll is different now than it used to be. You don't get to roll your dice and decide, oh, I want to scroll that one. You actually, before the magic phase, if you have a scroll, you pick if you want to use your scroll. You get to pick which spell, attribute, or bound spell that you don't want them to cast at all. So Mike decided to use his, and he put it against Know Thy Enemy, which I was disappointed because I did want to roll for that one. So I didn't get to do that one, and I end up getting off is the 2 shooting ones. So I got rid of his bats, his big bats, and then I put 3 wounds on his little bats. And I did remember and learn on this one, I gotta get my little skink priest over closer to all of them so I can use my shamanism. So that was a learning lesson for me. Magic, or for shooting, I'm gonna put them all together because shooting was nothing. I ended up putting a wound to myself on my own salamander, so I didn't do anything to Mike on shooting, but I wounded myself. Whoopsies. At the beginning of combat, I failed my leadership test on my little warriors. Overall, combat wasn't bad, considering the big guys, but I was hoping to do a wee bit better. I did 7 wounds, he did 10 wounds, and with overall combat res, it was a tie, but I'm nervous he's going to bring those little boogers back again, so we'll see.
So for my charge phase, I went ahead and brought my Vampire Knights into the Spearback. One nice thing I think, at least when I'm not the one shooting, about the new rules is quick to fire doesn't allow you to shoot if you're within the movement of the people. So normally that could just quick to fire and shoot me. This time she wasn't able to do that. She did decide to hold so I wouldn't go over and try to get her other salamander. And then the other Spearback was in the way, blocking up from me going into the Tarsaur. So I went ahead and just charged that with my my ghoul unit. And then I went ahead and brought my bats up to chaff her for the Temple Guard. My thinking is I want to turn and come into those Tarsaurs on the side with my ghouls, and I didn't want to give them a flank to do that, so I got the bats up there to stop that. And then I went ahead and also brought over my wraiths because I think she's going to charge the bats, which means she couldn't magic me, and that way the wraiths will be safe, but I wanted to get them close enough so they have a 12-inch march move to be within my general's leadership. And then I just brought the other bat swarms back a little bit so I could try to grow them back because they're down to just 5 wounds. Magic phase was pretty successful for me. I ended up getting the 6 flux card, which gives me 6 magic dice. I got 5 veil tokens. By the time that I did all my additional veil tokens and what was carried over, I basically ended up with a 9 to 6 magic phase. Alright, so the first one I tried to do was my bound spell for the 6-inch bubble for the raise. Karen got rid of that. I did use 3 dice on that and got it so it goes off on an 8 automatically, and she used 3 dice to get rid of it, got it exactly. I did do the next I did the next raise 6-inch aura, and she let one go because she didn't want me to have the toughness, which that spell went ahead and got 1 whole gas model back. Filled out my zombie unit, and also topped off my bat swarm with all of their wounds again. And then on the toughness spell, I tried to get the +1 toughness, and we got to look up the new miscast because I rolled 3 dice and got a 666. Luckily with 3 dice that goes down 1, so it went from implosion to I believe it was called backlash. So it was just 2 wounds for my caster. Karen rolled those, both of them went through. However, I rolled a 4 on 1 to save with the regen, so I only took 1 wound, and I'll absolutely give up 1 wound on my vampire to go ahead and get the +1 toughness on that unit there. So overall it was a very good magic phase, so we'll move on to the combat. So combat went really well on my side and not so great for Karen. On the vampire side, on knights, we knew that they would go ahead and clean up the spearback, and they did. Over on the other side for the spearback, my main vampire ghoul unit also went ahead and killed him. And then for the gas, Tarsaur, and Saurian warrior fight, Karen did 5 wounds. I was so lucky to have my toughness 6 up, and I think I did around 13 wounds to her warriors, and just with everything that happened, there was just a lot of attacks in there. That cannibalism, where I can re-roll all of my failed to hits from if the turn before I did any wounds is really brutal with the Ghast. That made such a difference on how many warriors I killed. And so it turned out that it was an auto break for her with everybody. I pursued the Pterosaur with the Engine of the Ancients. I did catch it. So her other 2 units are fleeing right now.
So I didn't realize that my Pterosaurs don't have stubborn during my last combat, so I did learn that about the new rules for them. Also, we didn't think about is with my Skink Wizard, we forgot Mike doesn't have any shooting, so I should have moved him out of that unit last turn so I could have got some other magic off, but better late than never. My charges, I did go ahead and charge into his bat. Both of my units rallied, and again, I moved my little Skink Wizard out so he can do some stuff, and I took my other Skinks to try to block up his horses, so we'll see what happens. So I had quite a lovely little magic phase, probably one of my best magic phases. I got off Know Thy Enemy, Awaken the Beast, and Scrying, and I ended up putting them all on the Temple Guard because I know Mike's going to be charging me from all different directions on the next turn here coming up. Mike got really super unlucky, I will say, is for Scrying. He rolled 5 dice and couldn't even get it, and it wasn't even a high number. He rolled a bunch of 1s and 2s, so that was very unlucky for him. I put my attribute Guiding Light on the Skinks and also my Pterosaurs, so pretty exciting for me, so kind of beefing up that unit. Hopefully they stay. My shooting, my little flamer, he ended up getting rid of 5 ghouls. For combat, I gobbled up his bats. I know that was a big surprise for everybody, and I just reformed.
So for my charge phase, I brought the Vampire Knights into the Skinks. I went ahead and brought the Wraiths into her Salamander. He did flee, but he only fled 5 inches, and I was able to get lucky and rolled an 8 and caught him. And then I brought my Gas into the unit of the Saurian Warriors. For the rest of my movement, all I did was just bring my bats up, my bat swarms over to the side. On the Wraith, I was able to pass my leadership test after I caught her Salamander to turn, so I'm facing the side of her Temple Guard over there. And then I just shambled up with my zombies and Cadaver Wagon, so they're closer given the regen. Alright, so I ended up with a really good magic phase. I got the Flux card 8, which give me 7 magic dice and 7 Veil tokens. I went ahead and converted the extra 4, so I ended up with 11 tokens to Karen's 7. I ended up getting off one of my bound 6-inch arrays, and I was able to get back 1 Ghast and all of my ghouls. Then I got off Whispers of the Veil on her Temple Guard unit, and Ancestral Aid on my ghouls. And Karen was able to get rid of my +1 strength and armor piercing on the ghouls. So overall, really good magic phase there. One thing that we're having a hard time remembering, and we keep having to go back and add to it, is anytime that you fail to cast a spell or dispel one, and you rolled 1s, then we got to remember Fizzle, and then those dice get to go back in there. Because Karen had one that she tried to dispel, and then we realized that she got those dice back. So combat went pretty well for the Vamps. On my Vamp Knights, I got really lucky because she has parry, and I still ended up hitting with almost everything, enough that she only had 5 Skinks left, so it was an auto break, and they were able to run them down. Over on the Gas side, I did well, but not well enough to break her. She still had 3 Saurian Warriors left, and she passed her leadership test, so we are stuck there, so I can expect a Pterosaur to be charging in next turn on those.
I had 2 charges. I know that was, unexpected from everybody, but I went ahead and charged with my 2 units. My magic phase, I got 2 off. I did Aura for Scrying and Know Thy Enemy. My attribute went on 1 of each units. So, off to combat now. Oh, I did miscast. I got pretty lucky. I miscast, and I only ended up taking 1 wound off of everything when it was all said and done. So, during combat, with the Pterosaur and the 3 warriors over there, the warriors died. And I lost combat, but my Pterosaur managed to roll his leadership, so he stayed put. On the other combat over here, though, is I won, and he ended up crumbling by 5. However, I'm going to call this one baloney. He has a thingy called Blade of the Red Thirst. He managed to grow everybody back that I just crumbled. I think that's baloney. He raises and it's not even his turn and he gets to raise. Doggummit!
All right, Vampires, turn 4. So first I went ahead and charged my race into the side of the Temple Guard. I didn't bring in the bats. I thought about it, but I just feel like I would just be giving too much combat res on there, so I didn't bring those in because I don't want my race to crumble out if I lose a lot. And then I brought my Vampire Knights around to hit the back of them. My Vampire Knights failed their march test, so they couldn't really get very far. I was going to try to get right behind them so she couldn't bring that Skink Priest in to block me up, but she'll still be able to do that. There was really no other movements afterwards. Going to Magic, I got the one that I got tons of dice. I think I ended up with 6 regular dice, and then I got 9 Veil tokens. I had 3 Veil tokens left over from the last round because of my getting the extra ones from my Magic from the evocation. So I ended up with 4 extra dice, which is the max you can have now. Karen let my bound bubble of the evocation go off. I brought back 9 ghouls. You'll see those just all piled up. I didn't even rank them because I know she's going to get rid of several of those ghouls anyway. She did get rid of the Savage Fury, and then I got Whispers of the Veil, so she's back down on her leadership and her weapon skill and everything, so that balances out her spell there. So I did forget to say that in the Magic phase, Karen used her Binding Scroll to not let me use Awaken the Beast spell. So in the combat phase, she got really lucky on her saves with her Tarsaur, and he lived, and with rolling 4 dice on leadership, he actually stuck. So he has 2 wounds left. And then the big combat, I feel really bad for Karen. It went horrible. These ghouls, the way that this is set up with the vampire in there, giving them parry, and then giving them super poison where they're hitting on 5s, and they get to reroll all of their missed attacks. Even with her scrying up, it was horrible. It was like 23 wounds that ended up going through. With the race going, she only had a few Temple Guard left in the front. So we're calling the game at this point just because there's just not much left on the board.
All right, well, good game. I know it was it's a fairly rough game for the Lizards. I don't think you were expecting quite everything that came at you.
No, not at all.
So before we talk about the game itself, what did you think about 2.0?
Actually, I didn't find it much different. I think the biggest thing I found different was just the terms, because I have to think about, okay, what's each of them mean, offense, defense, but there's a lot of other ones, and I already forgot about it without looking at my little cheat sheet. But I think overall, I don't feel like it really changed much as far as rules. The one thing I noticed we kept forgetting, but we kept putting it back, was on our Magic for the ones.
The fizzle?
Yeah, so we would always, if we forgot, we put it back, so. Yeah,
right, yeah. So anytime you fail to cast or dispel with a 1, any of the ones get to go back into your Magic pool. Yeah. And I do think, not just like the, calling offensive and defensive, but throughout, everything has new names, and it is going to be tough. That's one of the biggest changes for 2.0 is people just getting used to what everything is called.
Right.
And it'll take a while to get used to that. The other thing that I feel really made a difference in this is how the Magic phase works.
Yeah, I like it better.
It's a way better Magic phase.
I like it.
They needed to do something to it, and I think they've gotten very close on this. Mm-hmm. Every time that it's your Magic phase, you're going to get some dice. You're going to have more dice than your opponent. The way that both of our lists are built, we're meant to get a lot of dice in our turn, which we did. I mean, we were able to get spells off each time.
Yeah.
The miscast, both of us miscast. Neither one of us affected that much on the miscast.
No, you almost did.
Yeah. Well, if you would have rolled 666 instead of 555, you would have blown up your whole salon or your Colada Lord.
I wondered how much different.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't have made too much difference in the end. The other thing I would say with the Magic phase that I'd say is one of the biggest differences, other than the Veil tokens, is there's no scroll like we're used to. And the big thing with the scrolls is before, if you used your scroll, you were pulling 3, 4, 5 dice, and that really hurt that person's Magic phase. Now you're saying you can't cast a spell, but you still had all your dice the turn that I used mine, and same way when you used yours. So there's still plenty of magic to be had in that. You just don't get this spell that you absolutely wanted if they pick the right one.
But on the same token, when you want to get rid of that one spell because maybe that phase it's going to really hurt you, you know you don't have to worry about it because you just pulled it out.
That's true.
I did like that aspect about it too. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't have to worry about it.
But both of us had so many good spells because we're very magic heavy that
Yeah.
pulling one spell didn't affect as much.
That's
Now, if you
true.
go with 1 or 2 wizards and they say they're just Wizard Apprentice or Wizard Adept, I think that would make a much bigger difference on pulling one spell.
That's true.
But whereas I had 3 that raised, and I had all my evokes and my shamanism spells. I mean, and with you had so many divination spells and the shamanism spells that getting rid of 1 didn't affect us that much in this game. But that is a big difference with the magic, and I like that aspect of it because if you invest a lot in magic, you know you're just not going to get hosed on that one turn. You absolutely need it because you can't roll a 1 and 2 to not get your magic off, and they can't scroll and literally get rid of 4 or 5 dice for you.
Right.
So I felt really good about the magic. You have a very tough magic build. If we talked about it earlier, but if your one guy would have went over shamanism,
Oh yeah.
that would have helped.
Help boost it over there with my other units. It would have.
Absolutely. Your spearmen would still be there on turn 4 or 5. I think they would
Yeah.
have lost in the long run, but it wouldn't have went away so fast.
Right.
And your other Tarsaur wouldn't have ran. That was another sad thing for you. You didn't realize that you weren't stubborn anymore
Yeah.
on your Tarsaurs. It seems like on a lot of the books, some of the monsters lost their stubborn. The Rock
Right.
Ock lost it as well. But I like that as well because now Tarsaurs play like other monsters, and you have to be a little bit more careful with them. You can't just come in and on an 8 with 4 dice leaderships hold up units forever.
So which side you're looking at?
That is true, but I'm really happy about that. Also, the Temple Guard having the Strength 6, that's a really good thing. You've given the armor piercing banner, which unfortunately doesn't do anything for my list because I'm all regen, but being Strength 6, that's going to be a nice benefit for you, I think, on the lizards.
I feel your list was by far the toughest vampire list you've built so far. Hands down. I really do. Like,
So-
I don't know. It was gnarly.
Yeah, this list puts out more damage than some of my other ones. Some of my other ones were all raised lists, and so they didn't do much damage in combat, but they just raised up a ton. This one,
You do a bunch of damage, but then you raise them right back too. Sometimes that's where I feel like this one was. I don't know. I feel like this was the toughest list so far you've made.
Yeah.
But I know you did say too, if someone has flaming, it's not as good. I didn't have flaming things, so that's why it seemed probably tougher to me
sure.
with my particular army, I suppose.
The ghouls, they're only getting a regen 6, so it's not that big a deal. But both of my lords are going to be just on regen for their saves. So, of course, they have shamanism, so they can't be wounded on better than a 5. But the gas are the ones. And I know I complained a little bit about the cadaver wagon, getting nerfed so bad. The gas with getting to regen 4. That was brutal, and the fact that I had shamanism to give them toughness 6, I mean that becomes a nasty unit with so many wounds at toughness 6 with regen 4 without flaming. There's almost no way to go through it. I mean, you brought 2 Tarsaurs in and a huge unit of spears, and they just bounced.
Yeah.
So it does have a counter, and it's the flaming. So I'm not saying it's broken, but you're absolutely right. That is a very tough one. And this Ghoul Lord with the super poison, giving the +1 of the poison, and stacking that with cannibalism. So after the first round, when I do a wound, I'm automatically re-rolling all of those. I mean, it was just crazy. I was doing 23, 24 wounds to you, and you had distracting up. I mean, it was only my 5s and 6s, but being able to re-roll them with so many. And then also changing it to where you only have to be 8 wide for horde formation, so I'm not as exposed going to the 10 wide, because with those I was still able to get the 3 ranks of attacks in horde there.
Right about the horde.
So I will agree with you. This is a tough list, and if I don't run into a fire list, before I never thought ghoul gas lists were competitive. I was like, that was my fun list. Let's get together, let's have some fun. I can say for sure, people are not going to like play in this style of list because you've got 2 units that are almost impossible to get through. You've got the chaff with the bats, which I love that the bats are back up to movement 9, and the vampire knights, which didn't even have to do much this game yet.
I told you they were just hanging out.
So overall, I'm really happy with
liked it.
2.0.
Yeah.
I think everybody's...
Again, I don't see much. I mean, yes, there is changes, but not that much. I don't know. I feel like even for someone who's not very good with the rules, it was it was good.
Yeah, I think it got a little more strategic. A lot of things that they put in there, the subtleties in the rules, it's going to be, if someone really pays attention to how things work, I think it's going to help the players that really do study it. But it didn't get too complicated for anybody who just wants to have a fun, casual game.
Right, I agree with that.
Anything else?
No.
All right. Well, thanks so much for watching our first game with 2.0. We'll have some more videos coming out soon, and we'll talk to you later.
Have a Merry Christmas.
Bye.